Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where we not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. And the content that we're going to break down on this Saturday morning is something that is so key. We're talking about the New York Times realizing that the mass shooting that occurred in Kansas City isn't exactly what was reported, so they have to twist and they have to manipulate somehow. What I'm about to show you is where they are going. The doors are closing, and this is going to do more damage to their gun control points than is even possible from my channel or any other channel that we do. They are backing themselves into a corner on this because they already jumped the shark. We talked about it, and now I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Everything will be linked in the description box below, and of course, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. We are always looking to earn that subscription and help the channel grow, and thank you for that consideration. All right, my brothers and sisters, we've got to talk about the New York Times. You know, they are, after all, the paragon of gun control wisdom and the kind of the tip of the spear for the media. So we're going to dive into something here, and where they go on this, as I mentioned in the introduction, is key. They're going to start going after the idea that, yeah, it wasn't a mass shooting, and yeah, sure, they were under 18, and yeah, sure, they were minors, and yeah, sure, Kansas City's horrible when it comes to death rates and violence, and this isn't the first time, but that's what we're going to get to, because the but is where they're going to fall apart, and we will win in time. Check this out. Young victims and young suspects. The Kansas City shooting and gun violence. In the Super Bowl parade shooting, many of the wounded were children, and the two people charged so far in connection with the gunfire are also under 18. Now, I mentioned this right when it was released. I made a video about it. This is blowing up in their faces because they went full court press. They thought that they were going to get all the gun control emotion and mentality and momentum that they could get, and it's backfiring. Check it. Watch this. On the other side of the guns were young people too. According to the authorities who said on Friday, the two teenagers detained in the aftermath of the shooting have been charged with gun-related offenses and with resisting arrest. It's odd. I think there's some other things that they could be charged for. But anyway, we'll get to that. What had seemed like an attack on the parade itself turned out to be far more common act of American violence, a dispute that ended in gunfire, and in this case left one person dead and 22 people injured, and half of them younger than 16. So this is the point where I'm going to say this is unacceptable behavior. None of these people should have been hit. None of these children should have experienced this. None of the adults should have experienced this, and no one should have died. This is a result of gangs popping off in disputes and shooting at each other indiscriminately. I've covered that almost ad nauseum at this point. However, understand what they're doing. They just said, okay, it wasn't a mass shooting, fine, and they've got to transition somewhere. This is the fight, people, right here. When they transition and when they move and they change the narrative, this is where we go, all right? Now, they're going after the whole under 18 thing. Check this out. This is where they throw Kansas City completely under the bus. Kansas City has been enduring a lot of that bloodshed. The city has one of the highest murder rates in the nation, and last year, 182 people were killed, surpassing the high mark set in 2020. City officials say many of the killings were attributed to arguments, the same cause that investigators cited in the Super Bowl shooting. Okay, or the Super Bowl parade shooting. That's the important piece. After all the emotional headlines have gone, after the entire train has turned completely 180 on the track, now they're throwing Kansas under the bus, and now it's about the city itself. Well, it does have a very high murder rate, and a lot of those murders were from altercations and fights and disputes that turned into shooting. So now they're going to go away from the mass shooting angle, and they're about to introduce something that undermines gun control at its core. They're about to go into, well, all these 18-year-olds have, or under 18-year-olds, minors, have guns. They can't have guns legally in the United States. They cannot buy these guns legally in the United States. They cannot own them personally in the United States because they are minors. It's not possible, according to gun control. This is where it starts to fall apart, because now they're going to transition from mass shooting to under 18 is the problem. The only issue with that is their entire point of gun control being the solution is violating all the gun control. This is why it's going to backfire, and we're going to win in the end, because they cannot keep their story straight. Check it out. A person younger than 18 shot and killed another child somewhere in the United States once per day on average last year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. You guys know how I feel about that. The frequency has risen steadily over time, though it's difficult to say by exactly how much, since the demographic details on suspects and victims in the case is sometimes incomplete. Listen to this, and this is where it backfires on Democrats, gun controllers, everyone on the left. Listen to this piece. This is the New York Times. In survey after survey of young people, researchers have found that the vast majority of teenagers who acquire and carry guns do so because they feel unsafe in their neighborhoods. They believe, often correctly, that many people are carrying guns. So the reason that minors under 18 are carrying guns is because minors under 18 are carrying guns, all of which, by the way, they can't buy legally in a gun store, all of which they cannot possess legally in the United States. All of these issues that gun control was supposed to fix is not being accepted because everyone knows that everyone has a gun. Tell me you're pretty pointless without telling me you're pretty pointless. The New York Times is saying the quiet part out loud. The gun control does not work, and now we have a problem with minors. Again, when they open this door, you run through it like an elephant because this is easy as can be. They are literally saying that all these sub-18-year-olds have guns because they don't feel safe, which, by the way, not feeling safe is a direct result of Democratic policies where crime is going through the roof and there's no consequences and more criminals are staying back out on the streets. All of these things are centrally locating right around the Democratic Party. You got gun control that's failing on one side, you got criminal behavior that's accelerating on the other side, and you have no accountability coming from the progressive DAs in these big cities. Everything is circulating around one central nexus point, and it's not mass shooters, it's Democrat Party officials. Because this entire article is all about how this is a pervasive problem across the United States. All of a sudden, it's not mass shootings anymore. Now it's under 18s have guns, which they can't have guns because they told us they can't have guns, but they do have guns. Guys, this is incredibly important to understand. They are going down a road they're going to get smoked on. Let's continue. Got one more thing for you. And then he is often asked a follow-up questions about these 18-year-olds. Quote, we say, what kind of world do you want to live in where it's easy to get guns, hard to get guns, or impossible to get guns? And an overwhelming majority want to live in a world where it's impossible for teens like them to get guns. Even the ones who illegally carry, the majority of them usually say we'd like to live in a world where it's impossible for teens like us to get guns. The only way that teens are getting guns is if they're circumventing gun control processes that are already in place. Minors cannot have these guns. So in saying this, in attacking the 18 and under angle, the New York Times is openly telling you that gun control does not work and everyone wants to live in a world without guns, but since everyone has guns, they're all going to have guns as well, all in the face of gun control. Guys, the problem is not the inanimate object. We have a problem with what's in our hearts and what's within our minds. We are raising the next generation to not care about life and be focused on themselves and their self-preservation over life. That's what we're dealing with here. And I hope you guys see it the way I see it right there. Everything will be linked in the description box below. And of course, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.